A virtual component in SOLIDWORKS is a component that's saved internally, or directly within the assembly file. This means that no external part files or external references are required by the component, making it virtual within the assembly. As you've seen in the Inserting a New Component lesson, every time you insert a new part using top-down design, you're creating a virtual component within the assembly. However, you can make any component a virtual component in SOLIDWORKS, including external part files. This means that the external part will instead be saved virtually within the assembly. This can be useful if you have a few instances of the same component and need to make a change to one particular instance, or if you simply want to keep the folder where the assembly file is stored less cluttered. There are two ways to do this, and we'll take a look at both methods. The first method for saving a virtual component is available while inserting a new component into an assembly. I'll go to Insert Components and browse for a part to insert into this assembly. Before clicking the green check, notice at the bottom a Make Virtual checkbox is available. If I check it and insert a component into this assembly, I get a message saying that making a component virtual breaks the link to the external file. This means any changes I make to the virtual component in this assembly will not reflect on the original part file. I'll click OK, and the virtual component is added. Notice the name of the part, copy of the part name, followed by the assembly name. It's possible to rename the part, but I cannot change the assembly name after it. This lets you know which assembly it's attached to. I can rename the part by right-clicking on it and selecting Rename. I'll enter a new name and press Enter. The component now has the new name followed by the assembly name. The other method of creating a virtual component is to right-click on an existing component and click Make Virtual. I'll get the same message about breaking the link to the virtual file, so I'll click OK and the virtual component is shown in the feature tree. If I go to File, Find References, you can see that while most of the parts of this assembly have their own part files, the two virtual components are saved within the assembly file and do not have their own separate part files. In addition to making existing components into virtual components, you can also copy an existing virtual component from one assembly to another. To do this, I'll start a new assembly. Next, I'll tile my windows and drag and drop a virtual component from one assembly to another. Just keep in mind that when you do this, the copied virtual component is not linked to the original one. SOLIDWORKS will remind you of this with an alert message. I'll click OK, and the virtual component is copied into the new assembly. To finish this lesson up, if you decide you don't want to save the component virtually and instead would like an external part file, you can right-click on the virtual component in the Feature Manager tree and select Save Part or Assembly as External File. This brings up a Save As dialog box. Instead of specifying a path, I'd like to save this external part in the same location as the assembly. And when I click OK, the external part file is created.